Welcome everyone to this new episode. I have the pleasure to welcome Eric Jenkusky. Welcome Eric to the show.
Well, thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so Eric, you are like the CEO and co-founders of TG Clark International. I do have a lot of questions for you today. So obviously, on your background, but as well like on the different product that you're designing and basically commercializing. And as well, like on your specific experience dealing with the DOD as a small business owners in the US, I think that you have a lot to share here to try to advise on and share different tips and advice to other small businesses that want to deal with the government. But first, let's start with your background. I'm very interested to know like just the entrepreneurship journey. What were you doing before creating your companies? How to basically fund the idea and creating
Mhm.
your business. I really want to hear about that.
Well, I've been doing this now about 30 years. Started 1992, June of 1992. And I've been working in the defense space, the defense, homeland security, intelligence community space for virtually that entire time. I did take a little hiatus for a while and became a banker for a year. But other than that, I've been in the defense space. And what happened was I was at the time I had moved up progressively through different companies and both privately held and publicly traded, and each time gained more responsibility and so I finally uh, ended up at a company and uh, just decided I wasn't getting any younger and it was time to push the chips to the center of the table and I started with my co-founder. We started TJ Clark International. He's no longer with us, or although still a very close dear friend. And he actually went back into government service, so I bought him out, so there would be no conflict of interest or anything
Mm.
for him. But in February of 2015, we launched TJ Clark, and we identified a product that we wanted to be able to manufacture, which was at the time the 350 gallon per minute tactical fuel and water pump.
Mm.
Those are the pumps that the Department of Defense uses, the U.S. Department of Defense utilizes in different areas of the world to be able to provide fuel to vehicles and aircraft, both fixed wing and rotary wing, at forward operating environments to where they call the tactical edge. Used to be like you know the the forward line, but now it's now everybody calls it the tactical edge. So that's the I sat at the kitchen table with my brother and my brother-in-law, and we reverse engineered a pump system from the publicly available documents, such as the operating manual, and then we found photographs that were also in the public domain from the Defense Video and Imagery Service, and we produced uh, product data sheets that we started marketing to the Department of Defense and many of the major primes that were out there utilizing these pumps in various operations around the world. And by May, we had our first order.
How?
And we basically used the revenue to finance the company and
Wow.
my own and my personal finances. So never
How did
haven't.
How did that process went? Like, how did you identify the need first with the government? Was it like were they like purchasing pump from, I mean, foreign countries, and did you identify that there were a lack of like US made products, or how did you find the need, and how did you uh, how did you manage to basically be confident enough to say like these specific products, there is a need, we have like good chances to win like the contract, and there's a business case, and let's go for it. Can you share a little bit more on that?
Yeah, so the last remaining company that was manufacturing these pumps in the U.S., the owner, it was a family-owned business, and the owner passed away, and they ended up selling off having an auction, selling off the machinery and equipment.
Okay.
Uh, so so once that happened, there was some large defense companies that had built these in the past, but they generally want to take orders for 5,000 units at a time. They
Mm,
don't like they didn't want to handle the onesie twosie orders that which was the market that we went after. We went after the small scale, because what would happen is there would be an expansion of a fuel of a fuel farm, for instance, in Afghanistan at the time,
mm,
and Afghanistan, Iraq, East Africa, and the either the soldiers that were running the fuel farm or the defense contractors that were running the fuel farm would reach out and be like, "Hey, we're gonna add 5 more storage tanks, so we need 4 more pumps." And that's not a size order that the large multi-billion-dollar defense companies wanted to deal with. It
mm,
was they couldn't do it competitively. So we were able to I often tell people that we are a niche within a niche within a niche. And the funny thing is, I have all these people always contacting me on LinkedIn, telling me how they're going to help me grow my business by helping me identify my customer base better. And the first thing out of the gate is, why would I hire any of you? Because you clearly did nothing to investigate what our company is and what we do. Because if you did, you would know that our customer base is a very, very specialized group of people, and they already know who we are. So I don't know exactly who they think they were gonna market us to, but it's every single day I have to send a message back to somebody, saying, no, we're not interested. And I always take the time to tell them why. I go, you clearly, you're not doing yourself any favors by contacting a company like mine without understanding who my customer base is in the first place and telling me you're going to be able to help me identify more customers. But
mm,
at any rate, that's how we got into the business, and we haven't looked back. In the last, it was about a year ago, we won an IDIQ, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract with the U.S. Through the Defense Logistics Agency to provide the new 600 gallon per minute tactical fuel and 600 gallon per minute tactical water pumps. Both the NSNs, the national stock numbers, have been assigned to us as the manufacturer of record. So for us, that was after 8 years, 7 years of working really hard on this. That was kind of like the validation that everything we had done up until that point was worth it, and that we had arrived finally.
mm. So the decision for you to associate with yourself with your business partner, your co-founder at the time, was it like yourself bringing the technical expertise for the engineering and the design, operation, and your business partner to basically bring the knowledge of dealing with the government? Was it like the assumption at the beginning?
No, we both had we had almost equal experience, and but we moved the operation, or actually the manufacturing was taking place here in Ohio, and he lived in New York, and uh, he was presented with an opportunity to return back to the Department of the Army uh, in a civilian role, and he decided that that was what was best for him.
Mhm.
So that's why, like I said, we're still really, very close. He's a dear friend, and my father passed away last year, and in the last summer, we had a memorial service. He was there. And we have that kind of a relationship.
Okay. Okay, so you basically managed to design that first product, get some a contract, and get some revenue from the government, um, and then basically manage through that to fund the rest of the R&D for the other product line that you have within your company. Um, how was like the first experience? I would say like dealing like on that first contract with the government, and can you share like how was the bidding process as a new small business trying to deal with the government?
Well, in that particular case, we were actually a subcontractor to a major prime that had a contract to run the refueling operations at what is now known as, or was known as, Hamid Karzai International Airport in Kabul, Afghanistan. And so on the one side of the airport is where the U.S. forces were operating, and that's where they had their fuel farms for the for all their aviation assets. And these pumps, the very first pumps that we received an order for, were to go there and operate the fuel farm that was to replace existing pumps. And no, actually, I think they did an expansion, and those pumps were used for the expansion of the fuel farm at the airport in Kabul.
Okay. And as of today, now you've been like growing your product line. What's the different type of products and services that you currently have?
So we have our different. We have different pump sizes. We do 125 gallon per minute. We do a 350 gallon per minute. The latest pump, the contract that I was referring to, is for 600 gallon per minute. And we also do filter separators. We also manufacture a hyperchlorination unit for chlorinating, drinking water. We do some custom pump systems. We have a new pump that we have just won a contract from for the U.S. Navy, and that's a pump for what's known as damage control or firefighting on board ship. And what happens is this pump travels with the ship, and then anytime the ship docks at a port, this pump comes off, goes onto the dock, and it provides the water up to the firefighting system, the damage control system that's on board ship. That's a brand new product for us that we developed and won the contract for this past fall, and we're in the process of manufacturing the first units right now.
Wow,
So
congratulations.
yeah, so we're doing, and we're constantly one of the things that we're working on is that we had to design a trailer system to move our pump, because it's a trailer mounted pump system. But the way we designed this trailer, it could be a delivery platform for other types of products. So we could put a generator on there. We're in negotiations with a UAV company to place a UAV system, a tethered UAV system onto the trailer, because the trailer has been run through all. We've done what's called the first article test, and the trailer's been run through those tests where it's been towed and on highway, it's been towed on unimproved road, it's been towed cross country, and it's been run through all of these various tests that are required through the first article, what they call first article test for the contract.
Mhm. And as of right now, so you mentioned that your customers can be, in some cases, like primes, could be the Department of Defense in the US. Do you work with foreign militaries as well, and any other type of customers or organization?
Yes, we work with, so we're both a prime and a sub. So we're a prime directly to the U.S. government. We have 2 prime contracts right now, actually 3 prime contracts right now. And then we also work together as a sub to other primes, because there's also at times where the best way to be able to get something done and get it done quickly is to utilize a contract vehicle that another company may have. Like for instance, the Defense Logistics Agency has what they call tailored logistics support contracts that are awarded to basically companies that are distributors and of various products, and you can work with those different companies to be able to uh, circumvent legally the regular contracting acquisition process. And that's one of the things that we do. We work with several different companies that have these multi-year logistics support contracts where they're able to add our products on. It's somewhat like the GSA schedule, but not really. But that's the closest thing that I can provide as an analogy to to what it is. And so we also work directly with and have contracts directly from the Department of Defense. So we wear both hats, both prime and sub and major subcontractor. And
So let's
go ahead.
let's touch on the relationship and how it is to work with the DoD. Let's I'm curious to get like your feedback on your first impression. I will say like when you started like the process for the first time, and as well like try to see like your feedback, your advice on that process in general for potentially for other companies.
Well, I personally think that the whole acquisition system is incredibly broken, and I know I'm not the only person that shares that view, including many senior folks in the Department of Defense. The federal acquisitions are just, they need to be completely revamped for for this century. And the way that we as a government the U.S. government purchases items, especially in the Department of Defense, it's a multi-year process, and part of the problem is the bureaucracy. There's no incentive to do anything. There's no incentive to operate with a sense of urgency. There's no incentive to. The system is not designed to buy the best equipment, even though it claims that it is. It's generally designed to buy the most expedient equipment that provide that allows the government to do the least amount of work to get basically what they need. And I know some of the things I say are very, very unpopular. We recently had our member of Congress. Well, actually, it was a year ago. January, he came in and visited us and asked me, what is the what is the biggest problem you have with doing business with the U.S. government? I said, you all. And he goes, what do you mean? I go, Congress. I said, the problem is I have a contract for these pumps to build these pumps, and it's 176 pages long. And I had to initial a box that said that I didn't use child labor in Myanmar. Just Myanmar. No other country. Why? How about we just don't use child labor, period? And we don't have to. But Congress is the one who puts these, that puts these requirements into these contracts. I explained to him that if it was Sunbelt Rentals buying these water pumps, this would be a 2 or 3 page contract. Maybe 5 people would be involved. We get on calls and there's 25 people from the Department of Defense on the call and 5 of us. It makes no, and only 3 of the people from the government speak. The other 22, we have no idea what these people do or what they're, why they're relevant, etc. And when people talk about the bureaucracy, really is an animal in and of itself. And when you and it really, really needs to be reformed in order for companies like mine to be able to deliver to the warfighter the equipment that they need to have the advantage at the tactical edge, to have the advantage against our adversaries. We can't, we can't continue doing business like this. Now, one of the things that's happened is there's an explosion of what they call consortiums, and they focus in on different like product areas. But the consortiums, all they are is a means to circumvent the federal acquisition regulations by utilizing other transactional agreements, OTAs, and that's also an issue. It's like, just fix the system. Don't create other systems to circumvent the system that doesn't function properly in the first place. To me, none of this makes sense. And now there's all these different organizations. We have the Defense Innovation Unit, which is an Office of the Secretary of Defense level organization. And I'm probably going to get in trouble and people are not going to like me for what I'm about to say. But the DIU just put out, as an example, a requirement for a autonomous seagoing vessel that can do interdiction of hostile maritime forces. They put this out last Thursday, Friday. It's due on February 12th. A system that sophisticated. So what does that tell you? That tells you that they already have the company they want to fund. And to me, that's like, are you really getting the best things, or are you getting the person that had the best access to you? And it's like, come on, this is like ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous to think that somebody could put together a proposal in 3 weeks for something as sophisticated as what they are looking for. And what that tells you is, no, that's not possible, and that somebody else has already built what they like, and this is, again, just a way to circumvent the federal acquisition regulations so they could get money to that person. And it's not right, in my opinion.
What's they are like, I mean, when we're discussing together, you were mentioning as well, like some organization which are here to help small businesses, for example, to allow them to try to bid on those contracts. What's their role and what's their limitation?
Yeah, so the Department of Defense, in particular through the Office of Small Business, they created what used to be called Procurement Technical Assistance Centers, or PTACs, and they were located in all 50 states, and they were normally aligned with a university from that state. And those folks, in a lot of cases, were former contracting officers or former SBA officials, et cetera. And their role is to help small businesses be able to navigate the whole procurement system with the Department of Defense and other, and certain other federal government agencies. They've since rebranded as Apex Accelerators, but still the same primary function. I mean, that's a place where somebody that's looking to get into doing government contracting, and in particular defense contracting, that's a place where they would look to and be able to talk with and interact with the staffs of those organizations, of those Apex Accelerators, which are in all 50 states. All you have to do is Google Apex Accelerator and your state, and it'll come right up on, in your search. So that's that's one of the organizations that many states also have programs. Here in Ohio, we have a great Department of Development that works with the Apex Accelerators and all the other entities that exist to be able to assist companies in growing their market and growing their market share. The thing I told you, I was rushing right before, because it's the state of Ohio is I was filling out an application to participate in a trade mission to Vietnam and the Philippines in late April, and they were able to they're working together. They work with folks from that part of the world that will go and interact with either directly with the Vietnamese government or the Filipino government, and then they'll help set up the meetings for us to meet with the relevant defense officials that have authority over the types of products that we manufacture, so we can pitch them. And some of the countries you go to, they have foreign military, sales. They have either FMS or FMF, foreign military financing, that comes from our foreign relations budgets and our defense budget. And the thing that a lot of people don't know is that all that money, there's a lot of arguments going on right now because of Ukraine and because of Israel, and what people don't know is that if it's FMS or FMF money, that money has to be spent on a product manufactured by a U.S. company. So it's not like we're sending money to the Ukraine and they're buying guns from a Ukrainian manufacturer. That's not what's happening.
Mm,
All of that cash is actually, most of it doesn't really leave the U.S. Just the
mm,
product that the Ukrainians need, for instance, the warheads or 155 millimeter artillery shells. That's all that money is being spent with US companies. And people don't realize that because they just don't know how the system works. But we participate in the FMS and the FMF program. So
Okay, so if we just go back quickly, like on those different accelerators, defense accelerators, what's their role for a typical company that want to deal with the DoD? How do they help? Uh, do they actually? I mean, obviously, like help you point you to the right direction to basically find the different contract, and do they provide like assistance, for example, on the bidding process? How what is the how do they help?
yes, they have a number of different training programs. They also help with, for instance, suppose you're a woman-owned business, they help with getting your certifications that you are legitimately a woman-owned business.
Mm,
They help you identify women-owned business set-aside contracts. They can help you with understanding your obligations under the federal acquisition regulations. About, for instance, you may have to have certain security training in place for your employees, counterterrorism or counter espionage. And they help you understand, they help you identify where those trainings are. And the great thing is there's no fee for most of these services.
mm,
In a lot of states, they host conferences. They'll host a small business day, in a meeting, in a large meeting room or a ballroom someplace, and then they'll invite in all of they'll invite in like the Army Corps of Engineers, and they'll invite in uh, GSA. They'll invite in all the different procurement offices and their small business people from the different government agencies, so you can go and meet these folks and promote your products. So they do a no. I mean, they really their net is far and wide. They do a number of different things, and I can tell you from our experience, if they don't know how to get something done, they go out and find the person that does.
mm.
So they're definitely a helpful organization to anybody that's looking to break into the defense space as a contractor.
That would be like your first recommendation, I will say, like for a company that want to do business with the DoD, is to go to talk with those guys first before doing anything
I
else.
would talk with them in the SBA. The Small Business Administration works hand in hand with the Apex Accelerators in a lot of places, and I would go to both of them, and they have some really strong roadmaps that they're able to provide a company. And if you do what they tell you to do, then, and a lot of times a lot of this stuff is monotonous. It's boring. It's you're six different places you're going to fill your name out and your address, and a lot of people get frustrated with that. But if you're willing to look beyond that, and you're willing to be disciplined to what your goal is, then you're able to be successful at this. And I mean, we've grown the business to be a multi-million dollar, business, and in 8 years, uh, and we only really sell like 10 items, you know. So that's I think they can help you in a number of different in a number of different ways, and if you're willing to put the time and effort in, it will return. That's the thing too. You have to go to the meetings, you have to go to the conferences, you have to spend the time to do that. If there are guys, there are companies, one man shows in some cases where they just log on to sam.gov, they look at the the product and service solicitations that are coming out, and and they're sitting there in their underwear and on their computer, and they just bid on stuff, and then they're basically doing arbitrage. They buy from XYZ company and then sell to the government, but they're just a middleman. They don't do anything other than sit there and search contract requirements. But and there's people that make a good living at that. Um, so, but if you have an actual product and or service,
Mm.
by all means, get registered in sam.gov, obtain your cage code, which is your commercial and government entity code, cage code. You fill in all your information into your profile on sam.gov, and you fill out what you do, and that's how. And the SBA also has a page that you fill out also on that page what it is you do, and that's how people find you. That's how, when the contracting officers do what's called a request for information, or they do a sources sought, that's where they find, all right, here's 10 companies that are in the database that can build custom shelving for me. And then then they automatically just send that requirement out to you and say, please take a look at this. A lot of times you're getting the draft, so you're able to influence what's going to be in the final solicitation.
Mhm.
So that's why you want to be doing all things. It is time consuming, and it can be overwhelming because the government, as you probably know, as I know speaks a language that the rest of us don't, speak. A lot of acronyms, a lot of abbreviations, and you got to learn that language. So just like, hey, I want to start selling my product in Germany. Well, you either got to hire a German, or you got to learn German to be able to go sell there, right? So it's the same thing. You got to either learn the language, or you got to hire somebody that's already learned the language to come work for you. And before you do that, the Apex Accelerators and the SBA are the people that can help you. And then obviously all of the services have their small business offices as well that you can reach out to. And it goes all the way down to, suppose you're a company that sells office supplies, and you're next to Fort Knox, Kentucky. You're next to Fort Knox. You can just go to the Fort Knox small business office, and they'll help you get registered to be able to sell copy paper and pens to the offices on post. There's a lot of different ways to go after this market.
Can you describe like the process? So you mentioned like registration, first solicitation, then like the actual bidding. Can you describe like what's the process? What's the expectation at each steps of that process, just for people to know approximately?
Yes, there's well, the first thing is when the solicitation comes out, you have to read the whole thing, and you have to read it probably 5 times. It's like a good movie, right? You see a good movie and you watch it 3 more times, and then you notice things you didn't notice the first time you watched it. That all add to the story and the quality of the movie. But it's the same thing with these solicitations. There's so many things in these solicitations a lot of times. Many of them could be as few as 25 pages, and as many as, like I said earlier, many as 200 pages.
Mhm.
And you have to read through it because there are going to be requirements in there that are going to cost you money to be able to comply with.
Mm.
Uh, and you need to make sure you understand those expenses. Uh, so that's the first thing, and you have to then you have to build out what it is that you're going to be, your solution to that particular problem, whether it's a product or service. And then from there, you build out what your cost structure is, your overhead, your SG&A, and all the above. And uh, then you put the bid in. It's very, very important nowadays. It used to be that you had to mail the bid in and it had to be postmarked by the bid date. But now with the internet and email, um, you have to make sure if a bid's due at noon on a Tuesday, don't wait till 11:58 to email in your bid. You want to get that bid in sometime that morning. So, and then follow up with the contracting officer, confirm that they've received it, and if they haven't, then you have time to fix the problem. Uh, a lot of people, a lot of times they just don't read everything and don't answer all the questions, and they get disqualified.
Mm.
You don't want to waste your time, preparing bids and not reading everything and not answering all the questions. Another thing that's like a problem with the system, and it's something that quite honestly myself and my team struggled with in the early days, uh, is that we try to build things that we would want to work, we would want to use if we were the soldier or the sailor or the airman or the Marine that's 3,000, 5,000 miles from here in a desert someplace or in a jungle, and this thing had to work. We want to make sure we build it to where it want to work, but that's not the way the system works. The system gets whatever meets the minimum requirements, and that's what they want. A lot of times the system doesn't care if your product is better, if your product offers a number of additional benefits that make the life of the end user, that soldier or sailor, make that person's life easier. That's
Mm.
not the way the system's designed. The system's designed to get to get the best product, quote unquote best product they can
Yeah.
get for the lowest price.
Yeah.
And it's usually the bare minimum. And the companies that teach themselves how to do that are the ones that tend to be the most successful. In the I think it was in the movie Independence Day, with Bruce Willis, when they're on the rocket, and I think it was the Steve Buscemi character said something like, "Wait a second, we're on a spaceship that was awarded to the flying to an asteroid to keep it from crashing into Earth, and this spacecraft was built by the lowest bidder." Yeah, and that's the unfortunate thing. Now they have changed in some areas where they allow contracts to be what they call the best value to the government. So that doesn't necessarily mean lowest price, but 90% of the time or more, it's the lowest price that wins. And
So yeah,
yeah, go
so
ahead.
so when the bid is sent, what is the process after that? Like, do you follow up with them? Um do they directly reach out basically when there is like a need for information, for question? When is the process when you meet with them, or how does that
Yeah,
work?
if it's a lot of times they'll say, all right, this is the bid submission date. This will be the award date. And then if they decide that they need to ask, if they decide they don't understand something or they need to ask questions, and they're also allowed to negotiate. They're like, hey, well, we saw this, but if we do this, are you able to lower the price by X? So that at times can happen a lot. So you do need to, like, if they tell you, hey, we intend to award this on July 16th, and July 16th comes and goes and you don't hear anything, it's completely appropriate to reach out to the contracting officer and to check on the
Mm.
status of the contract. But I think the biggest thing is, if you're going to be doing business in a particular market, you want to be out visiting the end users, because all the end users have a set of contracting officers that they use.
Mm.
So you want to be talking to the end users to try to explain why your product is the best for them, and them to sit down with their contracting officer. If they really decide that, hey, this is really the best for me, they'll work with their contracting officer to develop a requirement that could be in your favor. So I think that's that's another thing. Now, the ugly part of all this is okay, if you win, it's great. You won, you're getting the contract, you're going to sell this product and our service. But what if you lose? And you think you lost because somebody else, your competitor did something, or misrepresented something. What happens then? So in the whole federal acquisition regulations, there's a whole section on bid protesting and how to protest the award of the contract. Now, I would have to tell you that it's somewhere around 92% of all awarded contracts are upheld. So it's an uphill battle to win a bid protest. Now, if you have certain information, you can increase your odds. But sometimes you can even be 100% right, and they still won't overturn the contract award, but they'll at least pay you for your bid preparation costs. There are times where they do overturn the award, and the contract gets awarded for somebody, because I've actually had that happen where I was able to get the contract revoked from somebody and awarded to us. So it does happen, but it's very, very rare.
Yeah,
Less than 1%.
less than
And
1%.
yeah, so the but you have to make the decision that how far you're going to fight things, because the system doesn't like things that upset the system.
Mm.
So
Maybe reputation and
yeah, exactly. But it's like when certain things happen that are egregious, then then it comes down to, what kind of a person am I? Am I going to
mm,
allow this to happen to me? And some people just roll with it, and they're like, all right, well, we'll win the next one. Me,
mm,
I'm a little bit of a fighter. You punch me in the face, I'm going to punch you back. And somebody does something wrong, I'm going to point it out. And especially when it's detrimental to me. Uh, but to me, it should always be about working to get the warfighter the best product, and to, at the best price. That's what it should always be. And I always feel like that we should, that in a way we need to be on the same team. The contracting officer, the end user, us. That's the objective. The objective is to get quality product, because talking about people's lives in a lot of cases. And do you want that thing that needs the work, that's going to save your husband, your wife, your child's life, because they're in combat, and it doesn't work? I mean, that's, to me, that's the worst thing. I tell my guys, my team, my guys and girls, I tell them, listen, we just don't build pumps here. We build pumps that refuel medevac helicopters that get wounded soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marine back to their families. You know, and everything is important, and when it comes to war. So if you're going to ask people to go fight on your behalf, you better be giving them good equipment to do it.
mm.
That's my opinion.
What's the your biggest challenge that you had, like in your business, and as well like in your experience, like doing business with the DoD?
I think the biggest challenge is you try to become an expert at the federal acquisitions regulations, but the rules are, it's like going into the casino. The odds are stacked in the favor of the contracting officer. They're not in your favor. And yeah, sometimes you can clean up at blackjack, but the most of the time the odds are stacked. The odds are not in your favor, And what I mean by that is they do this every day. And a good contracting officer has probably done, 10,000 contracts. They've had all kinds of stuff thrown at them. They've experienced all kinds of issues. They know how to survive. I
Mhm.
think I think one of the issues is the way that again, the system is not designed. The system is designed to allocate dollars. The contracting officers are, and I empathize with them as well, because they're under enormous pressure to get, because of the way the federal budget works, no fault of their own, not even the Department of Defense's fault. The way the federal budget works, because of the way Congress structured it, they have to allocate these dollars. They have to be allocated. So they need to get contracts awarded in order to be able to do that. And unfortunately, that oftentimes leads to either the path of least resistance to make that happen, or it encourages expediency. And there's games that get played. We've had a contracting officer tell us on a Thursday that we had to answer a bunch of questions. And according to the FAR, you have 3 days to answer those questions. And then that same person takes off Friday, so you can't ask any questions. So then they expect you and your advisors, suppose you have to go to a vendor to get, or 5 vendors to get answers to this question. And now you literally, and the question's not clear, so you're trying to call the contracting officer. They send this to you at 4:00 on a Thursday, clock's ticking. Friday, you're trying to call them. They and their staff are not answering, and then you have to answer by Sunday.
Yeah.
I mean, there's games like that get played. I say, like, both the FAR and the calendar get weaponized against you. So you got to be cognizant of that. And we've learned a lot of our, we've gained a lot of our knowledge through failing, through suffering, because we just didn't know any better. Now we're to a point where we know what to say and do to avoid some of that game playing that happens. And it's not because they don't like you. It's not because they hate you. It's because they're under pressure to get this contract awarded. Contracting officers get promoted because they get contracts awarded and allocate dollars. I think that's one of the things you always got to understand how people get compensated in order to be able to understand how you're going to interact with them, so you can attempt to align your objectives. And if you know how a person gets compensated, then a lot of times you're able to align with them, and you're and then they're helping you as opposed to fighting with you. So I think that's one of the issues. That's one of the big, even to this day, one of the big problems we have is making sure we understand everything that's happening, so that we're not missing something that can be used against you to get rid of you later in a contract, if by
Mhm.
keeping it in is going to make it more difficult or take longer to award the contract.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you so much for, sharing like all this information, all that feedback from this experience. I think it's extremely like valuable, because sometime I believe, like, when there is a new company that want to deal with the DOD, they typically don't know exactly like what to expect. They don't know the process, and it's always good to get like this kind of feedback that share like the whole stories with the good and the bad sometime of I would say not the good and the bad, but maybe like the area which can be improved in the process in general. So thank you so much for sharing all of that.
Yeah, we could probably talk for for 12 days about this.
Yeah.
You know, never mind 30, 45 minutes or whatever. There's just so many, there's just so many rabbit holes to go down, with this kind of, with defense contracting. But I really appreciate the opportunity to share some of this knowledge, and hopefully somebody finds it valuable, and they reach back out to you and tell you, hey, I listened to that podcast and we won our first $1 million contract.
Ah,
That if that happened, I think that would, that would be awesome.
yeah, that would be a success. Thank you so much, Eric. Good luck to you
No
with your
problem.
business, and happy to have you on this podcast. Take care.
All right, great. Thank you so much.